G'day, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to share with you a video lesson inside the blurry to tack sharp photos, the 4-step system course. And so this is one of the popular video lessons in there I wanted to share with you. It's all about stabilizing the camera. And there's different types of blur. There's motion blur and there's focus blur. So motion blur is two things. It could be the subject is moving or the camera is moving. So this video that I'm going to play for you that you can check out is all about tripod selection, how you stabilize the smartphone whether you have one or you don't have one, and what to look for in a tripod, because it's a little bit different with a more lightweight camera. You don't need something big and massive, but there are considerations that I share in this video. If you're listening to the podcast, I also have a YouTube where you can actually watch this, because this video lesson is it wasn't designed for just audio only. So if you feel like you're missing out, go jump on the YouTube and subscribe, hit the bell, and without further ado, I'll press the intro and get straight into it. So the big question is this: how do smartphone photo enthusiasts like us become that creative and confident photographer we desire and deserve to be, creating those beautiful, impactful photos? This podcast will give you the answers. I'm Mike, and welcome to the Smartphone Photography Club. Having any sort of blur in there or being out of focus makes it really hard for the next step of doing the editing it does. So we want to get it right in camera. You've probably heard that phrase for the big cameras, people talking about getting it right in camera. That's what we want to do, is we want to try and freeze that action. We've talked about how to stabilize or minimize the movement of the subject, either creating a windbreak if you're taking photos of flowers outside, or taking it out of the environment, or choosing a time when the environment doesn't impact as much. So with atmospheric conditions, then early morning, after rain, those sort of things. So timings can set up your subject. This is something we can address at any time, is the stability of your camera. So we're going to talk about how to stabilize the smartphone, how to stabilize yourself, and then we're going to talk about tripods and what to look for in tripod. I think at last count I have about 8 tripods, and I only use one. And I'll explain to you why I use that one, what I'm looking for, because then you can create your own wish list of features and must-haves and desirables, that sort of thing. Tactics. All right, before we do, I just want to share a quick story about how I kind of discovered the whole having to keep things stable with a smartphone. Because I always thought it's a smartphone, it's not a big one, it doesn't have a big lens, because if you're using an SLR or a mirrorless with a big lens, stability is a big issue. I didn't think it was such an issue with the smartphone, but this story I'll share with you. I used to take my photos on a iPad. When I first started taking photos, this was actually the one I started playing with. This is such an old iPad now. And I used to have my big, professional, massive tripod that would go up to 1.8 meters. So I'd be there on Princess Bridge in Melbourne taking long exposure photos, which is just still blows me away that you can take long exposure effect photos with your smartphone or your iPad. So that was what I was playing around with at the time. And the reason why I used the iPad is because you could actually see everything. It was fantastic. Unlike the SLR days where you had this little 3.5-inch screen, I could actually have this big screen. I could see exactly what I was doing. And I can go in there and adjust the ISO, shutter, all that sort of thing. In the live preview, it looks fantastic. Press the go button. I'm waiting, and getting that long exposure effect happening. You can see it in real time as the photo is taking place. And it kept coming out blurry, and I couldn't understand why it was blurry. And so I thought, okay, stability, it's movement blur. So then I grabbed my backpack, and the bottom of the tripod has the hook. So I put that on there, and I've got that tripod absolutely rock steady. Clamped up my iPad holder, clamped that up nice and tight. Still the same results. Until it finally dawned on me that it was actually the iPad holder at the time that I was using. At the time, it was actually mounted at the bottom. So sitting then on top, and the slightest breeze that there was just moving the iPad. And it was, I'm moving it excessively there, but just that tiny little bit of movement was enough that it couldn't actually achieve that sharp focus that I wanted. And I was getting that, and it wasn't pleasant movement. It wasn't the light trail or that wasn't the effect I was going for. So I was getting frustrated until it finally dawned on me. Now I have an iPad holder with the mount in the back there in the center, so that now when I attach that to the tripod, it's in the center and it's locked in instead of at the bottom where I've got so much more movement. So mounts, I'll talk about that again shortly. But let's focus firstly on stabilizing yourself. Okay, now you've probably heard about elbows in. So bring your elbows in. The reason for that is that a lot of people take photos like this. You've seen those people and they've got their elbows up. And the problem with that is that you've got all that movement there. And perfect conditions, daylight conditions where it's nice and bright, the camera will actually be working really fast. So that is okay during the day. But if you're taking photos indoors, where you've got a family gathering and you're indoors, then that is going to become an issue using that sort of technique. So that's what I recommend. Shoulders in. Now the way you hold it, I've seen some really funky different ways of holding the phones, two hands, that sort of thing. Whatever you're comfortable with. There really is no right and wrong way. Now with some Androids, you can actually go into the menu and you can move the shutter button. Instead of the shutter button being in the typical place, you can actually move it to somewhere else on the screen. So if you're taking selfie photos, you can actually move it to where it makes sense, where you're holding it with one hand, or however you're stabilizing it, you can move the shutter. So that's a really handy feature for that one. Another option on some smartphones is to actually use the volume button on the side there. And it's more natural if you're coming from a point and shoot background, then you might find that actually feels more natural squeezing that instead of tapping that. Because tapping that, depending on how you're doing it, you can actually get that movement there as well. And the other option is to actually use a timer. So you could have this nice and steady, and you find reaching for that shutter button is actually causing you some stability issues, reaching across and it's uncomfortable. Then you can actually use the timer and go, okay, 3-second timer. Now get comfortable, lock it in, and just wait for the timer to go off, and then bang, you've got the nice steady photo. So that's a couple of tips there. Also, find something sturdy. So if you find something that's sturdy that you can rest on, then you can rest that on there as well. Or if you're taking food photos, you can actually have your elbows on the table and take the photo that way. So you're actually creating stability, a tripod if you like. So yeah, it's a couple of tips there. All right, smartphone holder, let's touch on that. I touched about on the iPad, but what to look for in a smartphone holder. Now this is one that I have quite a few of these now. They're fantastic. It's the Sunlay Photo CRC-02. Fantastic. It fits the plus size, the smaller size. It has a screw knob at the bottom there with a fairly substantial thread. So you know that once it's locked in, it's locked in. Has cushioning there. But the best thing is you've got this Swiss Arca style mount, which is the dovetail mount. And basically that will just slide straight into all the modern tripods. You don't have to worry about having the tripod mount fixed to that, and then the tripod, so the camera mount that comes with your ball head or with your tripod. You don't have to worry about screwing that onto there and then putting into there. It's much more easy to just transfer these between, just attaching it directly with that dovetail mount. It's fantastic. Okay, tripods. Now this is one that I have spent a lot of time and money on tripods and frustration getting the wrong ones, because I have a lot of different uses. I do landscape photography, I do streetscape, I do macro, I do presentations in camera clubs. So I need something that is great as a desktop tripod, as well as something that I can stand in front of on different terrains, that sort of thing. So I have actually quite a versatile, demanding needs for my tripod. But I'm going to go through a couple of them here. This one here, this is a Siru. It's fantastic. Now this one I've taken out the center column. When you purchase this one, it has a center column that extends, makes it taller. What I love about this is that it turns into a handle. So you've got a handle there, great for turning it into a selfie stick. So that is a great example of turning a tripod into a selfie stick. And the ball head, just move that around. Fantastic. So that's one. And the reason why I use this in the studio here is that it sits at the same height. I don't have to adjust anything. It just sits there nice and comfortable, and it's perfect. Okay, the next one I want to show you is another Siru. I have this one on my website. And I thought this was the one I did all my research and spent the money and thought this was going to be the perfect solution for me. I'll get to that one in a moment, but I want to introduce you to this one because for a lot of people, this is the perfect solution. Different things you look for in a tripod is, you can see there I have my other smartphone holder there at the top. What we look for is do you want a center column? Because some tripods don't have the center column, so you just have the ball head on there. I always like having a center column because then you have the option of, if you don't want it, doesn't matter. It's still there. So If you want to extend it, you've got the option. If you don't have a center column, if you want to extend it, you don't have the option. So that makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. A lot of them have these little adjustments here that you can unlock, and you can move it to all sorts of different heights, and it just clicks in between each one. Okay, what I liked about this one is that I could get in nice and level, and it can go all the way, so you can actually turn this into, it's great for travel. Okay, so whoop, that was a big bang, wasn't it? So when I was traveling recently, it was great to have something that I could fold up. That was what I wanted. The other feature here that I want to show you is how to unscrew the legs on there. So this one here has a twist function. Now for someone like myself that has big hands, I love it because in one movement I can just go bang, I've unlocked them all, and then I can extend the whole thing out like that. So that's fantastic. If you don't have big hands, when my wife uses this, she undoes each one. So she'll undo that, screw it, undo the next one, screw it, and it drives me insane. I'm like, can I just do that for you? Can I, like, you can do that in one go, but she can't, and so she finds it a bit frustrating doing this herself. She doesn't want to be spending all this time unlocking them and all that sort of thing. Okay. The other option is you have levers, or I'll show you another one that I, in my ideal tripod, I'll show you that. The other thing to look for is the bottom. So with your rubber feet like this one, or you can get some that have the spike. The spikes are really handy if you do a lot of landscape photography out in the nature where you got damp ground. That can be fantastic as well. All right, so that's that one. As I discussed before, most of the tripods all have a little hook here, so you can stabilize that. Now I know we're just using smartphones. We're not using big cameras, so we don't need to be able to mount big, heavy things. You don't need to have that carry capacity or that load capacity. But having that the hook on the bottom can be really handy. All right, this brings me to my favorite one. This is a me photo. Now this is in the Air range. They have quite a few different. So they've got what have they got? They've got the Backpacker, the Roadmaster, and I think there's another one as well. But actually, you can see this one here. This is a travel. This is actually marketed as a travel tripod. But then compare the size. I'll just pop this one back the way it was. Look at that. Look at the size difference of the two of them there. And I know I've got that. Okay, so let's be fair. Let's take that out of it. Okay. And it's a good 4 inches. And weight-wise, it's a lot lighter as well. Still aluminium. Pop that one down. Okay, so this one here again has the dovetail there, so I can easily just go from one tripod, take that off, and pop that in there. Nice and easy. This one has a little spirit level on the top there, and the benefit of having a dovetail like this is the mount on the bottom there directly on the holder. Is see how that is there. When you actually put the tripod camera mount, the plate on there, the plate actually covers it, which is annoying. So this, you can actually move it and you can actually still see that spirit level. All right, have a look at this. One twisting action, you can hear it go click. Put it next to the microphone so you can hear it. There you go, and then out. And twist. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, and it's all in one movement. And you can actually adjust it, and you can have it at different heights as well, which is really handy. But twist action, bang, nice and easy. I love it, I love it. Okay, and this one, you can set this at different heights as well. Gotta lift that up. Okay, so look at that, that's nice and flat. Put that on there, fantastic. And again, you've got the ball head, so you can move that around. You can turn it into a portrait mode, vertical or horizontal. So easy to use, so incredibly easy to use, this one. Same as the other, you can undo the center column, turn it around, and that can now go upside down. Put that back on there. Love this tripod, love it. And now, can you see where I'm going with this? Can you see what I'm doing? I can have that turn around. There you go. And now I can have that phone at ground level. And you've got all this stability. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Okay, what else did I want to show you with this? Oh, the center column. Oh, I actually have this in upside down now. Pretty funky. All right, so what I want to do is tighten that, twist, and I've got an extension there as well. So now that ends up being about 1.65 meters, which is, for something so compact, it's unreal. Now, it is a bit flimsy when you have that extended all the way. It starts to get a bit flimsy, but we've got a lightweight smartphone on there. And most conditions, this is just fantastic. It really is. And the air range come with a Bluetooth shutter. It also came with a different smartphone holder, but it was a bit flimsy, so that's why I prefer this. So I just popped that one on there. So yeah, and it just feels like quality. It just feels really nice. I've used this one for a couple of years now, and it's just fantastic. Okay, so we've covered how to stabilize yourself, how to stabilize using tripods, what to look for. If you can't do any of those, if you can't practically use a tripod, say if you're on a train station platform or you're on the back of a ferry and there's movement and you can't control the movement, you don't have a tripod, and you can't. So a ferry is a great example because you go and stabilize yourself, but the whole boat's moving. There are circumstances where you can't stabilize these things. So as we've covered in another lesson, the manual control of the smartphone, and all you need to do is speed up the shutter speed, make your camera work faster. That's pretty much it. Adobe Lightroom app, go into the shutter, turn it off auto, leave the ISO on auto so that as you adjust the shutter, and it will automatically adjust the exposure, the balance of light and dark, and give you the shot that you want. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed that video lesson. So again, that was a lesson inside the blurry to tack sharp photos, the 4-step system. The link is down below the video in the podcast description or the YouTube description. So thank you again for joining me, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.